If you have ever wondered what would happen if two of the rarest and most expensive hypercars on the planet went head-to-head in a drag race, then wonder no more. The Ferrari Daytona SP3 and the Pagani Huayra Roadster BC recently faced off in a duel of absurd horsepower, flamboyant design, and wallets deep enough to make oil shakes blush. This wasn't some backyard car meet where Dave with his loud Civic thinks he can embarrass a Porsche. No, this was a fully fledged legal drag strip battle, where both cars had the chance to prove their worth over the standing quarter mile. One of them did, and the other just blamed its tires. The Ferrari Daytona SP3. The Ferrari Daytona SP3 isn't just a car, it's a rolling art piece. With its flowing lines, retro-inspired details, and sculpted bodywork, it's the kind of machine that would look just as comfortable parked in the Louvre as it would roaring down a drag strip. But underneath the aesthetic brilliance lies something much more sinister, a 6.5-liter naturally aspirated V12 engine. This masterpiece produces 840 horsepower and 697 newton-meters of torque, sending every ounce of it to the rear wheels through a 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox. Weighing in at around 1,600 kilograms, the Daytona SP3 isn't exactly featherlight, but Ferrari engineers know how to make weight dance. It is built with the kind of precision where even the carbon weave on the dashboard feels like it has been tuned for performance. And for the privilege of owning one, you'll need to part ways with well over 4 million pounds. Yes, million. That's the kind of money that could buy you an island, or perhaps 3 Ferraris if you wanted to get variety. But for those who can afford it, the SP3 offers something priceless, a naturally aspirated symphony that belongs in the Automotive Hall of Fame. The Pagani Huayra Roadster BC, lining up against Ferrari's masterpiece, was no underdog. The Pagani Huayra Roadster BC is every bit as extravagant, every bit as rare, and every bit as ludicrously priced. Where Ferrari builds machines like a watchmaker, Pagani builds them like an artist sculpting a one-off masterpiece. Every panel, every bolt, every stitch inside the Huayra feels personal. Yet despite its bespoke beauty, this machine isn't just about looks. Beneath the exotic carbon fiber skin sits a 6.0-liter twin-turbocharged V12, hand-built by AMG, producing 802 horsepower and an outrageous 1,050 newton-meters of torque. What makes the Huayra particularly intriguing is its weight. At just 1,350 kilograms, it's significantly lighter than the Ferrari. In theory, this should make it the quicker car. Power-to-weight ratio, after all, is the stuff drag races are built on. But there's a caveat. The Pagani uses a 7-speed automated manual gearbox, a setup that is exotic but not as polished as Ferrari's dual-clutch transmission. Combined with rear-wheel drive and nuclear-level torque, it can feel less like a car and more like trying to tame an angry bull with a silk ribbon. At over 4 million pounds, it's one very expensive bull. Banter before battle. Before the engines were let loose, there was time for some lighthearted banter. The Pagani driver joked that he drives one every other week, as if we were talking about borrowing the family hatchback for groceries. The Ferrari driver, meanwhile, confessed that he had multiple Daytona SP3s at his disposal, so he just brought along the silver one today. For the rest of us mere mortals who measure cars in decades of monthly payments, this kind of casual wealth is so far removed from reality that it might as well be science fiction. Still, it set the stage for what was shaping up to be an epic showdown. The pre-race ritual included the all-important sound check. The Ferrari's naturally aspirated V12 let out a roar so thunderous it could probably be heard in the next postcode. The Pagani, with its turbocharged lungs, responded with its own mix of whistles and growls. Both sounded glorious, but let's be honest, Ferrari's operatic V12 always wins the crowd's heart. Ferrari strikes. Engines primed, launch control engaged, and egos on the line, the flag dropped. The Ferrari leapt forward like a rocket, pinning its driver back with savage efficiency. The Pagani, however, struggled. Its rear tires lit up like a firework display. All smoke and no progress. In a battle where traction is everything, the Huayra simply couldn't put its power down. By the time the quarter mile ended, the Ferrari had crossed in 10.6 seconds, leaving the Pagani trailing behind at 11.2 seconds. The Pagani driver's excuse? Cold tires. tires, which is believable, sure, but when you've spent over 4 million pounds on a car, you'd think the tires would have the decency to warm themselves. History repeats. To keep things fair, the drivers lined up again. This time the Pagani launched more cleanly, but it was still no match for Ferrari's relentless grip and power delivery. Once again, the Daytona SP3 crossed the line first, cementing its dominance with surgical precision. The Huayra, despite its power advantage, simply couldn't harness its torque without turning its rear tires into smoke machines. 2 races, 2 wins for Ferrari. The message was clear. Brute force alone doesn't win drag races. Traction does. The rolling race, turbocharged redemption. Perhaps then a rolling race would favor the Pagani. Without the challenge of launching from a standstill, its twin-turbo V12 could stretch its legs and unleash that tidal wave of torque. Both cars rolled along at a modest 20 kilometers per hour before planting their throttles. For a brief moment, the Pagani seemed competitive, but once again, the Ferrari found its stride and pulled ahead. The Daytona SP3 didn't just win from a standstill, it dominated in motion too. The Huayra, despite its lighter weight and higher torque figure, simply couldn't overcome the Ferrari's composure and traction management. The brake test, who stops first? As if to rub salt in the wound, the final test was braking. Both cars accelerated together before hitting the brakes hard. The Ferrari stopped just half a car length shorter than the Pagani. That might not sound like much, but when dealing with hypercars traveling at ferocious speeds, half a car length is the difference between stopping safely and having a very awkward phone call with your insurance provider. The Ferrari's balance and braking system once again proved superior, while the Pagani's stiffer suspension didn't do it any favors under emergency braking. Ferrari's crown secured. By the end of the showdown, the Ferrari Daytona SP3 had secured an emphatic victory. It launched harder, accelerated faster, stopped shorter, and, according to most ears, sounded better. Its final quarter-mile time of 10.6 seconds compared to the Pagani's 11.2 seconds sealed the result. While the Huayra Roadster BC is undoubtedly a jaw-dropping piece of engineering and design, it simply couldn't match Ferrari's ability to convert power into performance on the drag strip. Million-pound problems. Perhaps the most entertaining part of all this wasn't just the race, but the way the drivers shrugged off the results. Imagine buying a car for 4 million pounds only to lose because of cold tires. For most of us, that's like burning your house down because the kettle made too much noise. Yet for hypercar owners, this is just another Tuesday. The Ferrari driver, meanwhile, could afford to be smug. After all, he had more of these cars waiting at home. For him, this was probably less about proving anything and more about deciding which Daytona SP3 he'll lend to his butler next weekend, the king of the quarter mile. So what did we learn? Ferrari's engineering genius is alive and well. The Daytona SP3 didn't just edge out the Pagani, it dominated with consistency, grace, and terrifying speed. Its naturally aspirated V12 delivered not only breathtaking performance, but also the kind of sound that makes grown men weak at the knees. The Pagani Huayra Roadster BC, while still an extraordinary car, felt more like a piece of art than a drag strip weapon. It's a car to be admired, photographed, and adored, not necessarily one to be flogged off the line against Ferrari's finest. And that's okay, because the world needs both. The precision of Maranello and the passion of Modena. Still, when the flag drops and the quarter mile beckons, the Ferrari Daytona SP3 is the one to bet your money on, assuming you have any left after buying one in the first place. And there you have it. If you enjoyed watching 2 ridiculously expensive cars thrash it out on the strip, make sure to smash that like and don't forget to subscribe. Drop a comment below and let us know. Which would you take home, the screaming Ferrari SP3 or the savage Pagani Huayra? We'll see you in the next race.